Tom, we're just talking Arkansas baseball, and it's so weird to me, man, that as good as this baseball program is, they'd only had one series win on the road in Baton Rouge in 2004 in Dave's second year. They get another one yesterday. Was this important for them to get the LSU monkey off their back, or is this just kind of another series against an opponent and a rival that really just isn't that good this year?
Right, and good morning. I think Dave Van Horn would say, it's a big series win, but I don't know if he'd jump on the old got LSU off our backs. But truthfully, that was big for the program, because if they had lost that one, A, would have been this team that's really kind of been their nemesis over the years, and B, are they starting to slip? But the great thing about this team is no matter what the circumstances, no matter where they play, they've won every series. Now, there's a few in here that you wish they could have gotten the game threes. The A&M series comes to mind after the doubleheader sweep, and then they have a shootout in game 3 on the brink of winning that one. And then this LSU game, with a called third strike on Zach Gregory, that was highly suspect. But anyway,
ump had dinner plans.
What's that?
The ump had dinner plans that night. He was ready to get out of there.
I think Dave Van Horn gave him an earful, but they just win every series, and that's why I think they're in really, really good position to get both the regional and the super regional host duties, and they just need to figure out. They've got to find a way to get a second and a third pitcher to get 5 innings on the weekends. And it's stunning to me that they haven't been able to sort that out, and yet they just keep winning series after series. And the two teams chasing them in the SEC West, they've already won series over those guys, Mississippi State and Ole Miss. And as Dave Van Horn said in the postgame after the doubleheader, that they've beaten the big boys on the road, and it's those two, and it's winning at South Carolina, a ranked team, and so, but it doesn't get any easier. I mean, Georgia's been up and down. Georgia's won a series at Vanderbilt this year, but they've also had some mysterious series losses, and then Tennessee will be waiting in the weeds to try to beat Arkansas in 2 weeks. So they've got 3 East teams that are really solid to close this thing out.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Vanderbilt losing to Florida this week, and that was big. And Arkansas, again, Tom, you brought it up, every SEC series they've won so far, and they've done it in a variety of ways. As you've mentioned, when you look at these remaining series, Georgia this weekend, Tennessee in 2 weeks, and then closing out at home at Florida, Tom, has Arkansas pretty much done everything they've done? Because is regionals, do they announce that next week, or is it this week who's hosting or not?
I think it might be, is the 10th? The 10th is the number that's in my head.
That might
be like is that right?
That sounds right.
I think it's a Monday, so they wait until this weekend's games, and then they come out with it, and there's 2 weekends left in the SEC regular season. And that's a pretty good cross-section of games that you've got to examine. And if Arkansas holds form and wins this series, even if they lost it 2-1, I don't think they could fall out of a top 8 situation just because of the quality. I mean, just their RPI and the quality of their wins. And to me, 3 weekends left. What you want to do is you want to find your third guy. I mean, I think they can stick with Paulette. Just need to try to get a little bit longer out of him. Second time through the order kind of stuff, and then maybe Vermillion, maybe Bolden, and maybe, I don't know if Lockhart will get another shot at it just because he just hasn't pitched well in recent third games. But find that position and then just let your batters go to work. They seem to be able to solve guys. And, it took them on Marceau in the first game against LSU. It took them a few innings, and there will be a no-hit for some of those, and then they solve him and score enough runs to win the game.
You was mentioning some of the RPI and some of the metrics that really get leaned on a little bit more in college baseball. There's 7 teams inside the top 25 from the SEC this morning, with Arkansas sticking at number one. But the other thing to look at is some of the non-conference teams Arkansas is played as well. You know, Texas at 6, TCU at 2. You just roll down the list. Tennessee coming up, by the way, is number 7. Georgia's not in that top 25. Tom, you roll through it, and Texas Tech's at 13. Louisiana Tech, who people might look over because of the names, at 18 in this list. Not only is Arkansas's conference schedule well represented in the top 25 of the RPI, there's a lot of the non-conference teams as well inside that NCAA RPI top 25 as well.
Yeah, there really are. I did a stat last week on their record against teams in the top 15, and I don't remember the exact number, but it's just something like 10-2 against teams in the top 15, which is just incredible because you swept Texas Tech and TCU, and you've won those road series against the 2 Mississippi schools who continue to be highly ranked. And yeah, that Louisiana Tech series, that's great for your RPI and your strength of schedule because it was a road series. And yet, another game 3 that, a pitcher got a wide berth in the strike zone, took advantage of it. And that's one of the losses Arkansas has. But they are just one of a small handful of teams who still have have single-digit total losses. And really, through the span of the season, they haven't had any major lull. You know, they lost the final game to Louisiana Tech, and then they got beat by Oklahoma, which is swinging the bat really well, and then they lost the first game of the Alabama series. That's been the only, little stretch where you're like, ooh, is this team really going to be good? And I think they fell to number 2 maybe, and then they bounced right back, and they've been number 1 since. I don't recall Arkansas having this straight of a run of being number 1 since I've been up here. So it's been a phenomenal season.
Yeah, Georgia's at 39, by the way, just to complete that thought. And you just look, you mentioned that, kind of finding that third pitcher. I was looking through just the series, and you mentioned the Bama series. You lost game 1 of that. You swept Mississippi State. 2 of 3 in the rest of the way, but it's a game 1 loss, game 2. There's no common pattern where you can say, well, you've won games 1 and 2 and you can't complete the sweep. That really doesn't hold true because you've lost games 1, 2, and 3 along the way in the various series where you've won 2 of 3. But as you watch it and you watch Lockhart struggle and you watch Connor Nolan come back in for his first outing back, and it didn't go well for him, to say the least, Arkansas does have to find that quality third starter, Tom, I think, not only to get to Omaha and make a deep run, but, Tom, perhaps even to make Omaha this year.
Yeah, you can envision, like if they get into a tight game, a tight series against somebody, and lose a game 2, and then they're facing elimination with a game 3, just how they would approach that, and that's an issue for Dave Van Horn and Matt Hobbs to try to solve. But the way they operate is they give Kevin Kopps as many innings as he needs to close out these Patrick Wicklander starts in game 1, and it's been a nice combination so far, and they've been able to bring Kopps back in games 3s, and including LSU this weekend with 3 innings, and he just shut them down. And had they been able to come back, then Kopps would have once again been a huge factor. So they've got to be able to solve that, and having a guy like Kopps be able to go twice on a weekend. And twice in decent length stints as well, that's a huge feather in their cap. But they've got to get another 8 innings on weekends out of guys that don't just get hammered, and that's been an issue. So I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I think Bolden will probably get a longer run, and I think Vermillion will get a longer run this weekend because they've got to be able to identify that person.
One more question. What's happened with Jackson Wiggins? I mean, there was a guy you were seeing consistently that you haven't seen much of lately at all.
Yeah, I just think controlling his pitches and having command of a breaking ball, because if you can only go fastball, they'll just sit on it. And no matter if it's 98 miles an hour, college hitters will get to you. So I think that's part of the deal. And, earlier in the season, he commanded it better. And he was untouchable for, those first several weeks of the year. And then the Ole Miss series came around, and both he and Kopps gave up runs and got banged around a little bit in one of those games. And Kopps regained his form immediately. And that might have been the weekend. Cops had one weekend that he pitched in all 3 games. I don't think that was it because it was a doubleheader. But anyway, Wiggins has pitched since then, but just not as effectively. So I'm sure when he gets his bullpens, they've been working on being able to stay in the zone so his fastball is more effective. And I do not know the answer to it, but if you've got him operating and you can get 2 or 3 innings out of him on a weekend, then that's a huge bonus.
Tom, let's transition to basketball before we let you go. Justin Smith announces over the weekend that he's hiring an agent and trying to get himself drafted in the 2021 NBA draft. What did Justin Smith mean to this Arkansas basketball program?
Well, probably the biggest key addition from the transfer market, with Moses Moody being the biggest key freshman addition. Just a huge Mike Henderson called them glue guys. He just did a little bit of everything, and you got a great feel for his value to this team in the games that he missed because they didn't seem to be connected as well defensively. Even at 6'7", he was a good rebounder. I think a more instinctive rebounder than the rest of the guys, and a guy you could post up in some one-on-one situations, and they did that in some games late. And just a terrific teammate. So, man, that's a huge loss for him, but really not unexpected. I mean, I felt like he would probably do this. So, but man, just the thought that he could come back for another year, that would have been an amazing situation for the Razorbacks.
Tom, also some breaking news this morning. This comes from Kevin McPherson that I know this was kind of rumored over the weekend, but Eric Musselman has hired Cal State Fullerton associate head coach Gus Arsenal, or I don't know how to say his last name, but he was at Muss with Nevada. What do you think about, and I don't know if you're just hearing this now or if you knew this was coming. Any thoughts, spur of the moment, on this seemingly hire?
Yeah, don't know a lot about him, but any guy who's got a background with Muss, knows how he operates, will be a plus, I think. And, yeah, I did hear about it some yesterday. I actually had the weekend in St. Louis, so I was a little low-key, but kept up with Bob some. So, yeah, I was aware of it. And I just think that when you have an operation that you're used to, that will play well for the Razorbacks. But, some assistant coach departures, and you got to keep the program rolling. And I just think Muss is going to be able to put together another quality staff that can reach these players and try to get the best from them.
Yeah. The fact that he worked with Muss before and he's bringing him back tells you a lot right there about this guy. Absolutely, it does. And Arkansas, man, it's a happening place right now. Mm-hmm. And I like the vibe around Northwest Arkansas. The reason I moved up here, and I think these coaches, they get it too, man. Yeah. It's a good place to be. Hey, can Felipe Franks make the roster with your Falcons? You're a Falcons guy. Can he make the 53?
Well, I think he can. He's got some development to do. Obviously, I thought he would be drafted, but anyway, I'm happy we have him, and he would have to. He's got some miles to go to be an NFL starter. But I love the kid's heart, and man, what a boon he was for the Razorbacks to have for 1 year. Because without him, it's hard to envision, the 3-7 season. What really should have been 4-6. And so kudos to Felipe, and good luck with the Falcons. We need you.
Tom, good stuff as always, buddy. We'll talk on Thursday, okay?
Sounds good, y'all. Have a good week. Bye.
All right.